I'm Michelle from CannaWell with Michelle. I'm a certified cannabis health coach who helps people find relief from many different ailments using medical cannabis. In this series, I'll talk to patients and colleagues who have incredible health journeys with cannabis. They use cannabis as part of their treatment plan for everything from Crohn's to PTSD and chronic pain. We'll hear their stories about how medical cannabis has helped them manage their conditions and feel better than they ever have before. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to CannaWell with Michelle interviews. I am happy to have Marianne Cursetjee here today. We met in Facebook in a women. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Marianne. And you can introduce yourself, and then maybe we can just get right into your health journey, your story.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here with you, and I'm really happy to share, like we were talking, my health journey and how cancer brought me to cannabis.
Yes, that's phenomenal. So many people have come to cannabis in so many different ways and come away with surprisingly different perspectives of what they went to it for. So I'm anxious to hear your story and how that's changed you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share. Should we just jump right in? Do you want me to start?
Sure, yeah. So let's talk about your cancer journey. So what kind of cancer did you have? And were you doing conventional treatments before, traditional treatment for your cancer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was diagnosed in 2015 with breast cancer, and my life until then was a very traditional, conservative kind of lifestyle. Had a degree in accounting. I had my MBA. I'd worked in technology and finance. So very traditional that way. Didn't come from the cannabis culture at all. But always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I owned my own e-commerce company, and I founded a couple other businesses along the way. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was, not that there's ever a perfect time, but it really was a perfect time to be able to take a year out of work and all of that to just focus on health and healing and getting through. My kids were teenagers and my husband was super supportive. So I was able to take the time that I needed to just focus on myself and focus on the health plan that we had. So there's so many different types of cancer and everybody's journey is different. Mine, the oncologist wanted, so we first did surgery, and then I had chemotherapy and then radiation. So I did all of that, and it was all challenging in so many different ways. Like each piece had things that were hard. And the doctor, my oncologist, even though I tried to pick one that was more open-minded, I found it really challenging to find an oncologist and find a care team that was open to alternative therapies. So I did all of the traditional things, but then supplemented it with cannabis. A friend had given me some RSO and said, hey, why don't you try this? It might help. And at that point, when you're huddled up in the corner just trying to get through, you're like, sure, I'll try anything. So I tried it, and it was amazing. I was able to completely manage all the side effects from chemo and all the symptoms, and it made me feel so much better. It made that process so much easier. And like, why isn't everybody else doing this? I mean, we should at least have this as an option. It should be something that the doctor says or the nurse says, hey, we've got this path or we have this path. Choose whichever one you want.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Why are we waiting for that to be the last resort? Oh, I've tried chemo and destroyed my endocannabinoid system. I've tried radiation and, it's just frying me. And then turn to cannabis after, when it's a last resort. Why are we not going to that first and seeing the effects from that? And then if that's not an effective way, then try and bring in some of those other ways that are, they just extend your life. They don't always, take it this well, right? Like traditional treatments aren't doing the same kind of work that cannabis is doing in all of these cancer patients that are coming through the other side with no evidence of cancer left in their body. So are you in this place now too?
Yeah, so I have a complete remission. So I've hit my 5-year mark. After the 5-year mark, they consider you done. So now my risk is kind of back to general population risk, which is great. And now I supplement with cannabis every day because I totally believe in the cancer fighting and the health benefits of it. And, you know, we hope it doesn't come back, but now I don't have any additional risk from having been through it already once.
Right. I'm going to get into more about what you do specifically, but before we get into that, I'd like to expand a little bit more too with your breast cancer. And I know that there are different types of breast cancers, and sometimes it's a different even cannabis regimen that can work for the different cancers. When you came to cannabis, you came specifically to treat symptoms and side effects. What were the specific side effects that you were treating?
Well, so from chemotherapy specifically, as you said, chemo is just, it really kills the cells in your body, and it's targeted to kill cancer cells, but it also kills everything else along the way. So it's some of the side effects that I felt were extreme fatigue, extreme nausea, just not feeling good. The nausea was kind of crazy. And what they do is they give you drugs. So the chemo is what kills cancer, but then your body wants to reject that. It's like, you know, like you have an organ transplant and your body says, no, this is foreign, get it out of here. So it's the same thing with chemo. Your body says, oh no, we're not doing that. So it wants to get rid of it. And that's part of the reason why your body just goes into this really weird state of, nope, we're not doing that. So they give you, so I had steroids that force your body to accept it. It's like anti-rejection meds. Like, nope, you are going to do this chemo and it's going to go in. But then the side effects of the steroids is that on one hand, you get really pumped up, this heightened kind of agitation and just kind of like bouncing off the walls kind of thing for a couple days. And then that goes away to the extreme fatigue and the nausea and just curled up in the corner, not wanting to do anything. And then the other side effects, I mean, if we really want to go into the medical side, which I'm happy to, if, you know, these are the things that maybe are not so well talked about, but they're important for the journey, is the steroids give really bad constipation. So then you have to take other drugs that make your GI tract work, and those cause these other side effects. So it's this cascading effect of all of these drugs, all these pharmaceuticals that really are just trying to force your body to accept chemo. And so cannabis was able to eliminate all of those pharmaceuticals. I had probably 8 different prescriptions that I was taking to manage side effects, and I was able to stop taking all of them and just do chemo and cannabis.
That's amazing. I love how you're saying with the side effect to this and the side effect to that, and then you're taking another med and another med. It's so evident in our pharmaceutical world because it's targeting one thing, changes the balance. So, you know, you have to fix that thing that changed and fix that thing. Whereas with cannabis, our body accepts it naturally because we have that endocannabinoid system in our body. Our body's built to interact with it. So it doesn't have to readjust for what we're supplementing in there. It naturally adjusts our body levels and puts us into balance. And that's why it's so much more stable than any other pharmaceutical that is out there. Were your doctors on board with that? Did they acknowledge the cannabis use and how it took away the other pharmaceuticals? Were they part of this? Not even.
They didn't even want to talk about it. I tried talking to them about what I was doing, and they didn't care. They didn't have the knowledge, and all they wanted to know is, okay, are you taking taking these drugs? What drugs are you taking? And that's That's it. There was no openness or understanding that there are actually alternative therapies that are effective. And that was really, really frustrating because it seems so incomplete. And our bodies are systems, and you can't just, I don't know, you can't just have one input and then expect it all to work. It's a system, so you need to treat it like one.
That's right. Treating our body as a whole and not just each part. And that's a big part of that for sure.
Yeah.
And what I like to also say, because we just finished the mental health issue, and going into the cancer issue next month, but as you came for the physical needs for your cancer and for getting off those other pharmaceuticals, did you experience any side effects in your mental health?
Oh, that's a good one. Not as serious as people who have actual mental health problems, but certainly the fatigue and the constantly feeling bad, it wears on you, and it's hard.
Yes.
And it's hard to get motivated when you feel terrible. It's hard to get motivated to do anything. And so it would have been so much easier to just like, nope, I'm just going to stay in bed today. Just come back tomorrow. I don't need anything. Just let me stay in bed. But I fortunately have a really good group of friends, and I found a good group while I was going through chemo, who motivated me to get going and keep moving. I actually started at a gym while I was going through chemo. So here I was bald and frail and a complete mess. I started at a gym studying Krav Maga, which is a self-defense. It's kind of like a martial arts style of training. It's very intense, and had always wanted to. And I thought, well, you know what the heck? Everything else is going to hell. So why don't I start doing something new? And so I started working out at the gym, and I forced myself to go at least twice a week. And it was hard, and I could barely, do the warm-ups, but just getting out and staying active made such a huge difference. And so when I have friends who are also going through cancer treatments, to me, like, one of the big things is to find something physically active that you enjoy, whether it's dancing or hula hoop or going for a walk in the park. It doesn't even matter what it is. Just find something that brings you joy, because, like you said, the mental health, taking care of your mental health is so important. And you've already got the physical stuff going on. So having additional mental health problems just compounds it and makes it more difficult.
Absolutely. If you just sat there and said, oh, poor me, and believe what the doctors say, that you have an expiry date on your life, and just,
Yep.
you're going to sit there and worry and add more stress to your life and just get into that negative rabbit hole. But when you can focus on those positive things, and it's so great that you had friends that were able to help lift you up and find something that brings you joy. And I'm sure supplementing with cannabis was able to help you get out of those low ruts and be able to get out of bed and be able to force yourself to do something that's hard, because we can do hard things when we're ready for them, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And it's interesting, now that I'm, 5 years past it, I actually use cannabis now as a workout, like a pre-workout. I'm just going to say drug, but I don't like using that word. So
Supplement.
pre-workout. Yeah. Because it does help. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I stumbled across all of these benefits just kind of by happenstance. And, it helps when you work out. It gives you more energy and more, I don't know, just the workout is better. Yeah. All of that. And, cancer, that was my path, but there are so many people with cancer journeys that I think the journey could be different if they had the option for cannabis. And so I'm really, really hopeful that the research and all of these stories can help change people's perspective and not just think of it as something, an illegal drug that's not okay. I'm like, really, it is medicine.
Yes.
Because, if somebody were to have cancer now, like, hopefully they would know more than I did. And that's the whole goal, is that we learn from our mistakes, and we learn and move
We
forward.
teach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like my dad had glioblastoma, which is brain cancer. It's one of the worst types of brain cancer. I mean, they're all terrible, and he, without casting aspersions on the rest of my family, but the rest of my family doesn't really support cannabis use. And research is now coming out about how effective cannabis is on glioblastoma. And people have gotten years of longevity just simply by using cannabis. And I tried, and I finally gave up because I couldn't get people on board with it.
Right.
So if you come from a more traditional science-based, evidence-based background, you want the evidence, it's a little bit of a harder sell now because the scientific research is just barely happening. And I wish it were different. I wish everybody could benefit from this knowledge that we have.
Absolutely. And getting into the doctor's education, like they need to have a little bit more knowledge of the endocannabinoid system and how all of that together and working as, you know, the whole body, mind, and spirit, not just the physical parts of our cells, so that they can get on board with this stuff, right? Just being able to teach that more in schools.
Yeah, my oldest daughter is, she's in her bachelor's program right now, but planning on going to med school. And so I'm always talking to her and sending her articles exactly about that, about the endocannabinoid system. And like, well, why don't you have a class? You learned all the bones in the body, you learned all the muscles. Why aren't you learning about the endocannabinoid system? And so now she just rolls her eyes and goes, Mom. But they had a guest lecturer a couple of weeks ago who is a physician at a alternative medicine school that we have here in Portland. And apparently this guest lecturer was talking exactly about that. And so my daughter called me up and she's like, Mom, all the stuff you've been telling me, she said it the same way you do, only like more sciencey. So I understood it. I'm like, yeah, it's there, it's real. So
I'm not just making this up. I know.
Yep.
That's funny.
So I have hope for the future. I have hope because, you know, there's enough voices and enough stories come together, and it'll happen.
Yes, absolutely. So I'd like to go now into what you use, like how you incorporate cannabis into your daily life. Do you use other cannabinoids as well? CBD, CBG, any others that you incorporate in there?
Yeah, I actually consulted with a cannabis specific doctor when I was just finishing up with chemo. Because like we talked about, my oncologist didn't want to provide me any guidance at all. And so this cannabis doctor gave me a guidance on that I should be taking 100 milligrams a day each of THC, CBD, and CBG, which is a huge amount of cannabis. Like that's a lot. So, you know, I haven't quite worked up to that because I found what I feel works for me, but I do try to take, I take it, every night. And, you know, it's fairly high doses, but hey, if it's good for my body and helps, like that's what we should be doing. So yeah, every day I take my cannabis and, you know, as well supplement it socially, you know, recreationally, because part of the cancer journey is that I have been learning more and more about things to avoid and things that, you know, maybe aren't so good for you. And so I've pretty much stopped drinking alcohol. Maybe have something every once in a while, but it's, you know, for the social, like we call it a social lubricant, right? You know, how makes it easier to have these, you know, go out to a bar and you just hang out with your friends and have a drink. But I'll just I take my cannabis syrup and I'll just add that to a drink, and I'm much happier that way.
Right. That's great. So is that how you do it? You have a cannabis syrup that you take those cannabinoids in? Are they all together? Like you just take it all at once, or do you have 3 different ones at different levels? And
yeah, I actually have the medicinal one that I take at night is actually, I use an RSO and a tincture. So it's pretty highly concentrated RSO that is relatively unpleasant to take, but you know, you get used to it, and I just rub it on my gums, and
Oh yeah,
that's my nightly routine.
perfect. And so do
Yeah.
you make some of your other own infusions, like the cannabis syrup? Did you make that yourself?
I made it for our business. So with Alibi Cannabis, we have a farm, and we have partners that have kitchens. And so yes, we have gummies and syrups that we manufacture for, well, we don't manufacture them, but they're under our brand for the Oregon market. So yes, we do have a syrup on the market. It's THC based syrup, because that was our first product, but we do have plans to also have CBN is real popular, and CBG.
Okay, that's awesome. CBG is still
Yeah.
my favorite cannabinoid.
And there's so many, like every time, like there's, there's THCV, and I tried some of that a while ago. I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. And all kinds of interesting ones that people are just learning about.
Right. It's tough in here in Canada. We have a recreational only market. So it's harder to source other cannabinoids because THC is so available and it's recreationally driven. So people are still not educated enough in the medical market, or, I would argue to say that, recreational and medical can be, the same thing, but we don't have
100%.
the access to all the other cannabinoids out there that are also so beneficial, because the recreational market is just, sourcing THC, and the higher the THC, the better. And then the highest THC laced with an extra concentrate, and
Yeah.
and then where's that bringing us? That you're not getting some of that therapeutic doses of a nice CBD and THC blend, or bringing in these other cannabinoids that affect different parts of our body at different times, right? All of this together works really well. And not saying THC is bad, just THC is just one cannabinoid out of hundreds. And
For sure.
we need to bring those other ones in as well in
Yeah, and
Canada
that's a
for
good
people to
point.
have
Yeah,
them.
like distillate versus full spectrum. A lot of people don't understand the difference. And if you have a market that is solely based on THC, it's really a hard sell to say, well, full spectrum actually includes all these other things that maybe we don't put on the label, or maybe you don't measure them, or we don't know a whole lot about them, but there's still benefits to them. And so I'm always about full spectrum. I don't use distillate in anything.
Right. Yeah, tell us more about your farms.
Yeah, so one of the side effects of chemo is that you get something that's called chemo brain, where everything's a little foggy and a little fuzzy. You may not be thinking quite so clearly. And so on the bad days, we joke, well, maybe we started this because I had chemo brain. But while I was going through chemo, we you had this brilliant idea to get into the cannabis business. Oregon had just passed the recreational rules, so it was they were just opening up. So we bought some property and built a building and started growing cannabis, which was a whole, like looking back, we've been doing it now for 7 years. So looking back, if we had known all the work that it would take and all of the struggles and everything that would necessary, I think we would have been too afraid to start, because it really is very daunting. The people who have been running cannabis businesses for as long as we have, and there's many of them, and it really takes a lot of courage and a lot of fortitude. You can't give up. There's always things that it's like chemo, right? Are you gonna go forward, or are you gonna stay in bed? Are you gonna get up? Or are you gonna sleep? Like
Right.
that's the way this is you always have to be making the choices. We are moving forward. So we've built Alibi Cannabis to be a pretty we're a top shelf company in Oregon, and growing some amazing weed and loving every minute of it. And we're expanding out through other states. So we're on shelves in Massachusetts and a couple other states coming online soon.
That's awesome. What so I can see that it was driven by being on chemo and doing your breast cancer treatment and being on cannabis, then that you're like, cannabis is where it's at. And it
Yep.
looks like this is the passion that drove that. So with that passion behind this farm, are you do you promote or at least talk about those uses in cancer? Like, are you backing any other cancer movement or making specific cultivars that can target cannabis patients at all? Like, is that any part of your market?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because let's see here, there's a lot of the medical type products that are available, like the RSO that I take, for example. We don't grow the cultivars that are the best for the RSO. The cultivars that we grow are THC focused. And so certainly they have some CBD and there's all these other cannabinoids at them. We grow high terpene. So our terpene percentages are usually around 4%, which is pretty high. So we grow high terpene, high THC flower because ultimately we're a business and that's what sells. But what we also do to try to educate the people who consume our products is we put the terpene percentage front and center on all of our packaging. It's big, it's bold, it's bigger than the THC percentage, because I would rather the conversation be about terpenes and understanding that there's more to the flower than just the THC.
Right.
So that's our way of driving the conversation and driving education while still producing a product that we can sell and make money at to sustain our business.
Right. And like you said, the challenges in that industry as it is are so, there's a lot of challenges just growing a quality product and then meeting market demand. You don't want to have a beautiful product and then, you know, the dispensary just saying, no, that, you know, that's not over 28% THC, so we're not going to take it. And here you're sitting with a beautiful, beautiful plant that, you know, isn't selling. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of driven that way, that it's, you know, the higher THC is kind of where the market is bringing people. How do you feel about that as a producer, as a farmer, knowing that the other cannabinoids are also as important?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And that's one of the reasons that we try to educate people. There's so much information about about the experience and what people actually enjoy that that customers don't have access to. I mean, they could have access to, but it's more of an industry specific type discussion. So people who are in the industry, it feels like an echo chamber, and that we all talk about the challenges of everything being driven by THC. But then if you go to shops and talk to customers in shops, most customers are not on the same wavelength. They're not in it every day, so they don't have the same perspective in understanding that there's more to it. And that's a really huge educational gap that the good retailers are trying to bridge that gap, but it's really hard. And a lot of smart people have tried a lot of ways to bridge that gap, and I don't have any like super brilliant ideas on it. But like I said, what we're doing is we're putting the terpene percentage front and center on all of our packaging, because hopefully that makes people stop and think like, oh, what is this? And is this different than the last one I had? And does it make me feel any different? And hopefully, I think it's a long play though. I think this is a long-term conversation. It's just like the categories of indica and sativa. For the longest time, you know, you talk to growers and you talk to people who are in the industry, and they hate those categories because they're inaccurate and incomplete, and there's so many things wrong with them. But yet during 420, so last month, I spent the whole day in dispensaries talking to customers, and people just come in, hey, I want a sativa that's 28% or higher. Like that's the conversation over and over and over again. And I don't know how you move that needle besides you just keep talking and you just keep providing information. And sometimes, somewhere, something's going to stick.
It will eventually. The more we get it out there, the more it will stick.
Yeah.
All right. I don't have more questions for you, but is there anything else you would like to share, even promote, or if you've got any events or anything coming up, or my viewers are all across Canada and the United States, so there could be still some local people near you. If you have any in-person events or anything happening, feel free to share.
Okay. Let me think. We are launching some new products. We have some infused pre-rolls that are going to be coming out soon. We're really excited about those. So if you're in Oregon, you'll have some infused pre-rolls on the shelf soon. We also are launching in Massachusetts and hopefully Ohio soon with a brand of products that is, we were talking about terpenes. So we're infusing gummies and syrups and pre-rolls with effect-based terpenes that provide consistent effects. So if you want something that's creative, that'll hopefully help you more creative, or something that will help you sleep, that has those terpenes in it. So we're super excited about those products. And the other thing I would just want to add is, even if you're not in Oregon and you can't go get Alibi, there is to educate yourself on what products you like. So I always like to encourage people to create some sort of a log. When you try something, what was it? How did it make you feel? Because, a lot of people have bad experiences with cannabis. Usually those are from taking too much. So, log it, keep track of it, go low and slow, and find something that works for you. Don't be afraid just because one time you had a bad experience. There's something out there that can help you feel better. And I'm fully on board with using cannabis as an alternative to mental health medications, Prozac and all of that stuff. So I think that it can be beneficial in so many ways that we don't even know about yet.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you agreed to join me here today. We had a great chat, and I'd love to stay connected with you and follow what you've been up to. So thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if people want to learn more about Alibi, we're on Instagram, Alibi Cannabis. Our website's alibicannabis.com. And I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
Perfect.